Thursday, August 27th, 2026. Today's World News Headline Summary. 1. The Korea Times. 1-1. Korea sees record number of students from immigrant backgrounds. South Korea is witnessing a significant demographic shift in its education system, recording an unprecedented number of students from immigrant backgrounds. Among these students, those with Vietnamese parents accounted for the largest share, making up 30.9% of the total, followed closely by Chinese and Filipino parents. Furthermore, the international student population in higher education institutions surged to a record 307,464, representing a 21.3% increase from the previous year. In a notable milestone, Vietnamese students surpassed Chinese students to become the largest group, accounting for 31.5% of the higher education total. As the demographic landscape evolves, experts emphasize that integrating these diverse groups into Korean culture remains a crucial objective for sustainable societal growth. Vocabulary. Unprecedented. Adjective. 전례 없는. The country is facing an unprecedented demographic shift. Immigrant. Noun. 이민자, 이주민. The number of students from immigrant backgrounds is rising. Account for. Verb phrase. 뭐뭐의 비율을 차지하다. Vietnamese students account for the largest share. Surge. Verb. 급증하다. International student enrollments surged to a record high. Surpass. Verb. 능가하다. 뛰어넘다. Vietnamese students surpassed Chinese students this year. Demographic. Adjective. 인구 통계학에. The school system is adapting to demographic changes. Milestone. Noun. 획기적인 사건. Reaching 300,000 international students is a major milestone. Integrate. Verb. 통합시키다. It is important to integrate them into the local culture. 시사용어 해설. Higher education. 고등교육. 대학교 및 대학원 등 중등교육, 고등학교 과정을 마친 후 진학하는 교육 단계를 의미합니다. Demographic shift. 인구 통계학적 변화. 국가나 지역의 인구 구조, 연령, 성별, 국적 등가 변화하는 현상을 뜻합니다. 1-2. 55% of Koreans view U.S. unfavorably, highest level in 20 years. A recent survey indicates a stark shift in South Korean public opinion regarding the United States, with unfavorable views reaching a 20-year high. The proportion of South Koreans holding a negative opinion of the 1-3. Trapped in K-shaped economy. Despite optimistic overall growth forecasts, concerns are mounting that South Korea is becoming increasingly trapped in K-shaped economy. The Ministry of Economy and Finance projected the nation's 2026 growth rate at 3.0%, bolstered heavily by the tech sector. Semiconductors currently account for almost 20% of Korea's total exports, driving macroeconomic indicators upward. However, this masks severe disparities in the labor market, as the unemployment rate for people ages 15 to 29 reached 7.2% in the first 7 months of the year. Experts note that while export-driven industries soar, the domestic economy and youth employment are plunging. This stark divergence highlights the urgent need for structural economic reforms. Vocabulary. Optimistic. Adjective. 낙관적인. The government released an optimistic growth forecast. Bolster. Verb. 북돋우다. 지지하다. The economy was bolstered by strong export figures. Indicator. Noun. 지표. Unemployment is a key macroeconomic indicator. Mask. Verb. 가리다. 은폐하다. The high average income masks severe poverty in some areas. Disparity. Noun. 차이. 격차. There is a growing disparity between the rich and the poor. Soar. Verb. 치솟다, 급등하다. Profits soared after the new product was launched. Plunge. Verb. 급락하다, 추락하다. Stock prices plunged following the tariff announcement. Divergence. Noun. 갈라짐, 양극화. The divergence in wealth is becoming a major social issue. 시사용어 해설. K-shaped economy. K자형 경제. 경제위기 이후 회복 과정에서 고소득층이나 특정 수출 산업, 알파벳 K의 윗부분처럼 상승은 빠르게 호황을 누리지만 저소득층이나 내수 산업, K의 아랫부분처럼 하락은 계속 침체되는 양극화 현상을 뜻합니다. 2. The Korea Herald. 2-1. Flash flood in Nepal leaves at least 9 Koreans missing. A catastrophic disaster has struck the mountainous border region between Nepal and Tibet as sudden flash floods and landslides swept away entire settlements. According to early reports, the disaster has claimed at least 160 lives, with hundreds more still unaccounted for. Among the missing are at least 9 South Korean nationals, prompting deep concern in Seoul. The surging waters severely damaged roads, bridges, and critical infrastructure, isolating remote villages. While Nepalese authorities have mobilized search and rescue operations, their progress is being heavily hampered by the difficult terrain and destroyed transport links. The international community is closely monitoring the situation as casualty figures are expected to rise. Vocabulary. Catastrophic. Adjective. 대재앙에. The catastrophic earthquake destroyed the entire city. Flash flood. Noun. 돌발 홍수. The heavy rain caused a sudden flash flood in the valley. Settlement. Noun. 정착지. The flood swept away several riverside settlements. Unaccounted for. Adjective. 행방불명인. 3 hikers are still unaccounted for after the storm. Isolate. Verb. 고립시키다. The heavy snowfall isolated the small mountain village. Mobilize. Verb. 동원하다. Authorities mobilized the army to help with rescue efforts. Hamper. Verb. 방해하다. 지연시키다. Rescue operations were hampered by bad weather. Casualty. Noun. 사상자. 희생자. The exact number of casualties has not yet been confirmed. 시사용어 해설. Flash flood. 돌발 홍수. 짧은 시간 안에 내린 폭우나 빙하 붕괴 등으로 인해 강물이 순식간에 범람하여 일어나는 홍수입니다. 대피 시간이 짧아 인명 피해가 큽니다. Number 2. Border renewables to K-food hub. Local leaders pitch bold growth plans to President Lee. Local government leaders presented a series of ambitious regional development strategies to President Lee Jae-myung during the 10th Central Local Cooperation meeting. The pitches aimed to decentralize economic power from the capital region by establishing new industrial hubs across the country. Gangwon Province proposed building a resident participatory renewable energy base along the inter-Korean border, urging the Defense Ministry to address landmine risks. Meanwhile, North Gyeongsang Province pitched the creation of a major K-food industry hub, leveraging its rich agricultural background. President Lee emphasized that balanced development is no longer a choice or a favor, but an essential strategy for survival, promising concentrated support for these mega projects. Vocabulary. Ambitious. Adjective. 야심찬. The mayor revealed an ambitious plan to rebuild the city. Decentralize. Verb. 분산시키다. The government aims to decentralize economic power. Participatory. Adjective. 참여형이. The town launched a resident participatory budgeting system. Leverage. Verb. 최대한 활용하다. The company will leverage its global network to boost sales. Agricultural. Adjective. 농업이. The region is known for its rich agricultural products. Essential. Adjective. 필수적인. Water is essential for the survival of all living things. Survival. Noun. 생존. The company's survival depends on continuous innovation. Concentrate. Verb. 집중하다. They plan to concentrate their resources on developing AI. 시사용어 해설. Decentralization. 지방분권화, 분산. 중앙정부나 수도권에 집중된 권력이나 경제적 자원을 지방자치단체나 여러 지역으로 나누어 균형 발전을 꾀하는 정책을 뜻합니다. 2-3. BOK raises 2026 growth forecast to 3%. The Bank of Korea, BOK, has significantly revised its economic outlook, raising its 2026 growth forecast for the nation to 3% from a previous estimate of 6%. This optimistic adjustment was driven by stronger than expected performance as real gross domestic product grew 6% in the second quarter. This figure was notably 3 times the BOK's 2% forecast. Despite the robust economic expansion, policymakers remain cautious due to persistent underlying price pressures. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, stood at 6% in July, continuing to exceed the central bank's target rate of 2%. Vocabulary. Revise. Verb. 수정하다, 변경하다. The bank revised its economic outlook for the year. Estimate. Noun. 추정치, 전망치. The previous estimate was much lower than the actual result. Robust. Adjective. 탄탄한, 강력한. The country has enjoyed robust economic expansion. Cautious. Adjective. 신중한, 조심스러운. Policymakers remain cautious about the rising debt. Persistent. Adjective. 지속적인, 끈질긴. Persistent inflation is hurting low-income families. Underlying. Adjective. 근본적인, 기저에 있는. We must address the underlying causes of the crisis. Volatile. Adjective. 변동성이 큰. Food and energy prices are highly volatile. Exceed. Verb. 초과하다, 뛰어넘다. The company's profits exceeded all expectations. 시사 용어 해설. Core inflation. 근원 물가 상승률. 날씨나 국제 정세에 따라 가격이 널뛰기 쉬운 농산물과 석유류, 에너지를 제외하고 계산한 물가 상승률입니다. 경제의 기초적인 물가 흐름을 파악할 때 쓰입니다. GDP, Gross Domestic Product, 국내 총생산. 한 나라 안에서 일정 기간 동안 새로 생산된 재화와 서비스의 시장 가치를 모두 합한 것으로 국가 경제의 크기를 나타내는 대표 지표입니다.
3. CNN. 3-1. Canada announces retaliatory tariffs on hundreds of American goods. In a severe escalation of a brewing trade war, Canada has announced sweeping retaliatory tariffs on roughly $27.6 billion worth of American goods. This move is a direct response to broad tariffs recently imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney declared that his government would match the American economic penalties dollar for dollar, rate for rate. Effective September 8, these countermeasures will levy heavy taxes on a wide range of U.S. products, including steel, aluminum, and agricultural goods. With recent trade negotiations utterly collapsed, economists warn that this conflict will severely disrupt cross-border supply chains and drive up consumer prices across North America. Vocabulary. Escalation. Noun. 악화, 분쟁의 고조. The border skirmish led to a dangerous escalation of war. Retaliatory. Adjective. 보복적인. The country imposed retaliatory tariffs on imported steel. Impose. Verb. 부과하다, 강제하다. The government plans to impose strict regulations on AI. Countermeasure. Noun. 대항주치, 대응책. The Defense Ministry announced new countermeasures. Levy. Verb. 세금 등을 부과하다. The city will levy a new tax on plastic bags. Erupt. Verb. 분출하다, 발발하다. Fierce protests erupted across the capital city. Collapse. Verb. 붕괴하다, 결렬되다. The peace negotiations collapsed after 2 days. Disrupt. Verb. 방해하다, 지장을 주다. The ongoing strike could disrupt the global supply chain. 시사용어 해설. Retaliatory tariffs, 보복 관세. 상대국이 부당하게 자국 수출품에 관세를 올렸을 때 이에 맞서 상대국 수입품에도 징벌적으로 똑같이 높은 관세를 매기는 조치입니다. Dollar for dollar, 1대1 맞대응. 상대국이 가한 피해 금액과 정확히 동일한 가치만큼 맞대응한다는 의미의 비유적 표현입니다.
3-2. Country music icon Dolly Parton dies at 80. Dolly Parton, the universally beloved country music icon, prolific songwriter, and celebrated philanthropist, has passed away at the age of 80. According to a statement from her family, Parton died peacefully in Nashville after bravely facing a brief battle with cancer. Spanning a remarkable career of over 6 decades, she leaves behind an extraordinary catalog of hits, including timeless classics like Jolene and I Will Always Love You. Beyond her musical genius, Parton was deeply cherished for her unconditional generosity. She spearheaded the Imagination Library to promote early childhood literacy and significantly funded vital medical research. Tributes are pouring in globally, mourning a star who truly brought light to the world. Vocabulary. Prolific. Adjective. 다작하는. He is one of the most prolific writers of his generation. Philanthropist. Noun. 자선가. The billionaire philanthropist donated millions to charity. Pass away. Verb phrase. 타계하다. My grandfather passed away peacefully in his sleep. Span. Verb. 기간을 포괄하다. Her acting career spans over 50 years. Extraordinary. Adjective. 비범한. 대단한. She has an extraordinary talent for playing the piano. Timeless. Adjective. 세월이 흘러도 변치 않는. The movie is considered a timeless classic. Unconditional. Adjective. 무조건적인. A mother's love for her child is often unconditional. Spearhead. Verb. 선봉에 서다. She spearheaded the campaign to clean up the ocean. 시사 용어 해설. Philanthropist. 자선가. 자신의 막대한 재산이나 시간, 노력을 기부하여 인류의 복지를 증진하고 사회적 약자를 돕는 사람을 뜻합니다. Literacy. 문해력. 글을 읽고 쓸 줄 아는 능력. 돌리 파튼의 Imagination Library는 아이들에게 무료로 책을 나누어 주어 이 문해력을 높이는 데 큰 공헌을 했습니다.
Number 3. 3. Dozens dead, hundreds missing after flooding in Nepal, China. A massive humanitarian crisis is unfolding following devastating flash floods that struck the mountainous border between Nepal and China. Raging floodwaters slammed into towns without warning, leaving dozens dead and hundreds more missing. Environmental experts attribute the sheer scale of the disaster to melting glaciers exacerbated by global climate change. Video footage captured a massive rush of water slamming into a town, washing away homes and vital infrastructure. Emergency workers are currently conducting urgent rescue operations, desperately searching for survivors buried under thick mud and debris. However, the treacherous topography is severely complicating these life-saving efforts. Vocabulary. Humanitarian. Adjective. 인도주의적인. The UN provided humanitarian aid to the war-torn country. Raging. Adjective. 맹렬한. 거센. They barely managed to cross the raging river. Attribute. Verb. 에 탓으로 돌리다. She attributes her success to hard work. Sheer. Adjective. 순전한. 크기나 정도가 엄청난. The sheer volume of data is overwhelming. Exacerbate. Verb. 악화시키다. Pollution has exacerbated the city's respiratory problems. Footage. Noun. 사건 등을 담은 영상. The security footage showed the suspect leaving the bank. Debris. Noun. 잔해. 파편. Rescue workers searched for survivors under the debris. Treacherous. Adjective. 위험한. 기만적인. The icy roads were incredibly treacherous to drive on. 시사 용어 해설. Glacier. 빙하. 높은 산이나 극지방에 얼어있는 거대한 얼음덩어리입니다. 기온 상승으로 이것이 급격히 녹으면 산 아래로 엄청난 양의 물이 쏟아지는 재난이 발생합니다.
4.4-1. Global markets on edge as U.S.-Canada trade war escalates. The escalating trade war between the United States and Canada has left global markets deeply on edge. Following Washington's imposition of sweeping tariffs and Ottawa's swift promise of dollar-for-dollar retaliation, international economic monitors are raising red flags. Analysts warn that this aggressive resurgence of protectionism could severely disrupt established global supply chains and lead to heightened inflation worldwide. European and Asian trading partners are anxiously observing the standoff, fearing that the breakdown of the North American trade framework might set a dangerous precedent. Consequently, multinational corporations are scrambling to reevaluate their cross-border logistics to mitigate potential financial damage. Vocabulary. On edge. Idiom. 긴장함.
안절부절 못하는. Investors are on edge ahead of the central bank's decision. Imposition. Noun. 부과. 시행. The imposition of new taxes was highly unpopular. Sweeping. Adjective. 전면적인. The new CEO announced sweeping changes to the company. Resurgence. Noun. 재기. 부활. There has been a recent resurgence of interest in retro fashion. Protectionism. Noun. 보호무역주의. Economic crises often lead to a rise in protectionism. Standoff. Noun. 대치. 교착 상태. The diplomatic standoff lasted for several weeks. Scramble. Verb. 다급히 행동하다. Rescue teams scrambled to find survivors in the rubble. Mitigate. Verb. 완화하다. We must implement policies to mitigate climate change. 시사용어 해설. Protectionism. 보호무역주의. 국가가 자국의 산업을 보호하기 위해 수입품에 높은 관세를 매기거나 수입량을 제한하여 자유무역을 억제하는 경제정책입니다.
4-2. Dolly Parton, beloved country singer and philanthropist, dies at 80. The music world is in profound mourning following the death of Dolly Parton, the iconic country singer-songwriter, who has died at the age of 80. Parton's representatives confirmed she passed away surrounded by loved ones after a brief battle with cancer. Renowned for her glittering stage presence and storytelling prowess in hits like 9 to 5, she was equally revered for her massive philanthropic efforts. Major artists across the globe have paid heartfelt tributes, with pop superstar Beyoncé describing her as the North Star of the industry. Fans in the UK and worldwide continue to celebrate a woman who farmed not just songs, but happiness. Vocabulary. Profound. Adjective. 깊은. 심오한. The speech had a profound impact on the audience. Mourning. Noun. 애도. 상. The entire nation was in mourning after the tragedy. Iconic. Adjective. 상징적인. 우상해. The Eiffel Tower is an iconic landmark of Paris. Glittering. Adjective. 눈부신. 화려한. She had a glittering career in Hollywood. Prowess. Noun. 뛰어난 솜씨. 기량. He is known for his physical prowess on the football field. Revere. Verb. 존경하다. 숭배하다. Nelson Mandela is revered as a global icon of peace. Heartfelt. Adjective. 진심 어린. I offer my heartfelt apologies for the mistake. Tribute. Noun. 헌사. 추모. The concert was a tribute to the late musician. 시사용어 해설. Philanthropist. 자선가. 자신의 부와 영향력을 이용해 타인과 사회를 돕는 데 헌신하는 사람을 뜻합니다. 돌리 파턴은 수백만 권의 아동 도서를 기부한 것으로 유명합니다. 4-3. Climate fears grow as Nepal-Tibet border floods claim over 150 lives. Fears over the lethal impacts of climate change are intensifying after catastrophic floods devastated the Nepal-Tibet border, claiming over 150 lives. Torrents of water, mud, and debris completely obliterated high-altitude villages and critical infrastructure in a matter of minutes. Glaciologists suspect the disaster was a glacial lake outburst flood, a phenomenon becoming alarmingly frequent as global warming accelerates the melting of Himalayan glaciers. With hundreds still missing, rescue teams face nearly impossible conditions due to destroyed roads. Environmentalists warned that without immediate global intervention to curb emissions, such apocalyptic mountain tsunamis will strike again. Vocabulary. Lethal. Adjective. 치명적인. The chemical leak posed a lethal threat to the town. Devastate. Verb. 완전히 파괴하다. The bomb devastated the city center. Obliterate. Verb. 흔적을 없애다. The memory of that night was completely obliterated. Altitude. Noun. 고도. 해발. We are flying at an altitude of 30,000 feet. Phenomenon. Noun. 현상. Snow in the middle of summer is a rare phenomenon. Alarmingly. Adverb. 놀라울 정도로. 불안하게. The crime rate has increased alarmingly this year. Intervention. Noun. 개입, 간섭. Military intervention was deemed necessary to stop the war. Apocalyptic. Adjective. 종말론적인. The ruined city looked like an apocalyptic wasteland. 시사용어 해설. Glough. Glacial lake outburst flood. 빙하호 붕괴 홍수. 빙하가 녹아 생긴 거대한 호수를 막고 있던 둑이 무너지면서 엄청난 양의 물이 산 아래로 폭포수처럼 쏟아져 내리는 치명적인 자연재해입니다. 5. ABC Australia. 5-1. Asian and Pacific markets react cautiously to North American tariff dispute. Financial markets across the Asia-Pacific region are responding with heightened caution to the erupting tariff war between the United States and Canada. For export-driven economies like Australia, South Korea, and Japan, the sudden breakdown of North American trade relations presents a significant economic risk. Economists fear that the heavy retaliatory tariffs imposed by both sides will act as a catalyst for a broader wave of global protectionism, inevitably shrinking international trade volumes. In response to this uncertainty, regional investors are actively recalibrating their portfolios, showing a growing preference for safe haven assets, such as gold. The situation underscores the fragile interconnectedness of the modern global economy. Vocabulary. Cautiously. Adverb. 조심스럽게. The team proceeded cautiously through the dark cave. Export-driven. Adjective. 수출 주도형의. Japan's economy is historically export-driven. Breakdown. Noun. 붕괴, 결렬. A breakdown in communication caused the project to fail. Catalyst. Noun. 기폭제, 촉매. The protests served as a catalyst for political reform. Shrink. Verb. 줄어들다, 위축되다. The company's profits began to shrink last quarter. Recalibrate. Verb. 재조정하다. Businesses must recalibrate their strategies after the pandemic. Preference. Noun. 선호도. Customers have a strong preference for eco-friendly products. Interconnectedness. Noun. 상호 연결성. The internet has increased global interconnectedness. 시사 용어 해설. Safe haven assets. 안전자산. 주식 등 위험자산과 달리 경제 위기나 불확실성이 커질 때 가치가 안정적으로 유지되거나 오르는 자산. 예, 금, 호주 국채, 미 달러 등을 뜻합니다. 5-2. Nepal flash floods. Regional rescue efforts intensify amid rising death toll. A massive humanitarian crisis is unfolding in Nepal after devastating flash floods originating near the Tibetan border swept through central districts. The ferocious torrents have killed nearly 100 people and left over 750 individuals missing, burying entire villages under thick layers of mud. Environmental experts speculate that the disaster was likely triggered by a combination of seismic activity and rapidly melting glaciers, exacerbated by climate change. Emergency personnel are intensifying search and rescue operations, although difficult mountainous terrain continues to obstruct their efforts. Neighboring nations and international allies are stepping in, dispatching urgent humanitarian assistance to the devastated regions. Vocabulary. Humanitarian. Adjective. 인도주의적인. The UN provided humanitarian aid to the war-torn country. Unfold. Verb. 전개되다. 펼쳐지다. The drama continued to unfold over the next few days. Ferocious. Adjective. 맹렬한. 흉포한. A ferocious storm battered the coastal town. Torrent. Noun. 급류. The heavy rain turned the small river into a raging torrent. Speculate. Verb. 추측하다. Experts speculate that the market will recover soon. Seismic. Adjective. 지진의. Japan is a country with high seismic activity. Obstruct. Verb. 막다, 방해하다. Fallen trees obstructed the main highway. Dispatch. Verb. 파견하다. The government dispatched medical teams to the disaster zone. 시사용어 해설. Seismic activity. 지진 활동. 지각의 움직임이나 화산 활동으로 인해 발생하는 지진 현상을 통틀어 일컫습니다. 5-3. Vale Dolly Parton. Country Legends Impact on Global Music Community. The global music community is mourning the loss of Dolly Parton, who passed away at the age of 80 after a brief battle with cancer. Often hailed as the queen of country, Parton was instrumental in catapulting the genre into the global mainstream with timeless hits like Jolene. Beyond her musical achievements, her profound impact as a philanthropist is being celebrated worldwide. Australians are fondly remembering her immense generosity, notably her Imagination Library, which distributed countless books to young children down under. Tributes from fellow artists and fans continue to pour in, proving that her legacy is as enduring as her voice. Vocabulary. Hail. Verb. 환호하며 맞이하다, 칭송하다. He was hailed as a hero by the local community. Instrumental. Adjective. 중요한 역할을 하는. She was instrumental in passing the new environmental law. Catapult. Verb. 갑자기 끌어올리다. The viral video catapulted the young singer to fame. Mainstream. Noun. 주류. Veganism has increasingly moved into the mainstream. Profound. Adjective. 깊은, 엄청난. Her speech had a profound effect on me. Immense. Adjective. 엄청난, 어마어마한. The project cost an immense amount of money. Enduring. Adjective. 지속되는, 영속적인. The Mona Lisa has an enduring appeal. Legacy. Noun. 유산. The former president left a complicated legacy. 이사 용어 해설. Veil. 라틴어로 안녕호, farewell라는 뜻으로 호주 등 영연방 국가의 언론에서 유명 인사의 부고 기사 제목에 조의를 표할 때 자주 쓰는 단어입니다.
6-point CGTN 6-1. Flash floods in northern Nepal have killed 16 people. Severe flash floods ravaging northern Nepal have resulted in tragic fatalities, with early reports confirming 16 dead and hundreds of foreign tourists still missing. The deluge, triggered by sudden topographical shifts near the Tibetan border, obliterated several popular trekking routes and local infrastructure. Because the region is a highly frequented destination for international climbers, the high number of missing foreigners has sparked global concern. Nepalese emergency response teams, aided by Chinese armed police deployed to assist with emergency operations, are frantically trying to re-establish communication lines. Authorities warn that the death toll will inevitably rise as muddy waters recede. Vocabulary. Ravage. Verb. 짓밟다, 파괴하다. The hurricane ravaged the entire eastern coastline. Fatality. Noun. 사망자 수. The car accident resulted in 0 fatalities. Deluge. Noun. 대홍수, 폭우. A sudden deluge flooded the downtown streets. Topographical. Adjective. 지형하게. We studied the topographical map before the hike. Obliterate. Verb. 흔적을 없애다. The bomb blast obliterated the old building. Spark. Verb. 촉발시키다. The controversial speech sparked a massive protest. Frantically. Adverb. 미친 듯이. They were frantically searching for their lost dog. Recede. Verb. 물러나다. 약해지다. It took weeks for the floodwaters to recede. 시사용어 해설. Trekking route. 트레킹 코스. 산이나 자연을 걸어서 여행하는 경로를 말합니다. 네팔 히말라야 산맥 부근에는 외국인들이 많이 찾는 트레킹 코스가 집중되어 있어 이번 재난의 외국인 피해가 컸습니다.
6-2. Stopgap over solution. Besant's market moves mask U.S. fiscal fragility. Critics argue that U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's recent market calming measures function merely as a stopgap rather than a fundamental solution. While short-term market maneuvers can temporarily soothe nervous investors and stabilize trading, they essentially mask the deeper fiscal fragility underlying the U.S. economy. Analysts point out that America's soaring national debt and chronic budget deficits require comprehensive structural reforms, not just superficial financial band-aids.
By deferring difficult economic decisions, the administration is potentially setting the stage for a more severe financial crisis in the future. The international financial community remains highly skeptical about the long-term sustainability of Washington's fiscal trajectory. Vocabulary. Stopgap. Noun. 임시방편. 미봉책. Candles were used as a stopgap when the power went out. Maneuver. Noun. 묘책. 조작. The company's legal maneuver delayed the trial. Soothe. Verb. 진정시키다. The soft music helped to soothe the crying baby. Fragility. Noun. 취약성. The crisis exposed the fragility of the banking system. Underlying. Adjective. 근본적인. 기저해. We must address the underlying causes of poverty. Chronic. Adjective. 만성적인. He has been suffering from chronic back pain. Defer. Verb. 미루다. 연기하다. The committee decided to defer the decision until next week. Trajectory. Noun. 궤도. 궤적. The missile deviated from its intended trajectory. 시사 용어 해설. Fiscal fragility. 재정 취약성. 국가가 세금으로 걷어들이는 수입보다 지출이 훨씬 많아 부채가 감당하기 어려울 정도로 쌓여 있는 경제적 불안정 상태를 의미합니다.
Number 6. 3. China's largest ever EV recall. 4.3 million cars. In a massive blow to the automotive industry, China has announced its largest ever electric vehicle, EV, recall, affecting a staggering 4.3 million cars. Regulatory authorities identified a critical battery software defect that could potentially pose a severe fire hazard under specific conditions. The sweeping recall involves multiple leading domestic and international EV brands, sending a wave of anxiety through the rapidly expanding market. Manufacturers have promised to resolve the issue swiftly via over-the-air (OTA) software updates, minimizing the need for physical garage visits. Nevertheless, experts caution that such a massive safety alert could temporarily dent consumer confidence in the booming green tech sector. Vocabulary. Recall. Noun. 회수. Recall. The company issued a safety recall for the defective toys. Staggering. Adjective. 엄청난. 충격적인. The project cost a staggering $2 billion. Defect. Noun. 결함. 하자. A mechanical defect caused the engine to fail. Pose. Verb. 위협. 문제를 제기하다. The toxic waste poses a serious threat to the environment. Hazard. Noun. 위험. 요소. Smoking is a major health hazard. Sweeping. Adjective. 전면적인. 광범위한. The president made sweeping changes to the law. Swiftly. Adverb. 신속하게. The police responded swiftly to the emergency call. Dent. Verb. 자신감. 명성 등을 훼손하다. The scandal seriously dented the politician's reputation. 시사 용어 해설. Over the air. OTA. 업데이트. 자동차 서비스 센터에 직접 가지 않아도 스마트폰을 업데이트하듯 통신망을 통해 차량의 소프트웨어를 원격으로 수정하고 업그레이드하는 기술을 말합니다. 7. NHK World Japan. 7-1. Japanese PM repeats ambiguous stance on non-nuclear principles. The Japanese Prime Minister is facing intense scrutiny after repeatedly delivering an ambiguous stance on the nation's long-standing non-nuclear principles. Amid growing regional security threats and escalating geopolitical tensions, certain conservative factions within Japan are heavily pushing for discussions regarding a potential nuclear sharing arrangement. However, this vague rhetoric has triggered strong backlash from opposition parties and civic groups, who vehemently argue that altering these core tenets would deeply undermine Japan's pacifist constitution. Critics are demanding a clear, unequivocal reaffirmation of the country's commitment to never possess, produce, or permit the introduction of nuclear weapons. Vocabulary. Ambiguous. Adjective. 애매한, 모호한. The ending of the movie was intentionally ambiguous. Scrutiny. Noun. 정밀조사. 철저한 검토. The company's financial records are under strict scrutiny. Faction. Noun. 파벌. 당파. The political party split into two opposing factions. Rhetoric. Noun. 수사학. 과장된 말. We need action to solve the problem, not empty rhetoric. Backlash. Noun. 반발. The new tax policy faced a massive public backlash.
vehemently, adverb, 열정적으로, 격렬하게. She vehemently denied the accusations against her. Tenet, noun, 원리, 효리. Free speech is a core tenet of democracy. Unequivocal, adjective, 명백한, 단호한. The professor gave an unequivocal no to the request. 시사용어 해설. Non-nuclear principles, 비핵 3원칙. 일본이 견지해온 핵무기를 가지지도, 만들지도, 들여오지도 않는다는 국가 기본 방침입니다. 최근 안보 위협을 이유로 일부에서 이 원칙의 수정을 요구해 논란이 되고 있습니다.
7-2. Moderate earthquake shakes Japan, injuring more than 30 people in Tokyo region. A moderate earthquake struck eastern Japan, significantly shaking the Tokyo metropolitan region and injuring more than 30 people. The tremors forced the temporary suspension of bullet trains and local subway services, causing major disruptions during the morning commute. Fortunately, authorities confirmed that no tsunami warning was necessary, and there were no immediate reports of major structural damage to nuclear power plants. The Japan Meteorological Agency warned residents to remain highly vigilant, noting that powerful aftershocks of a similar magnitude could potentially strike within the next week. Citizens are advised to secure heavy furniture and review evacuation routes. Vocabulary. Moderate. Adjective. 중간에, 적당한. The doctor recommended moderate exercise every day. Tremor. Noun. 진동, 떨림. We felt a slight tremor before the main earthquake hit. Suspension. Noun. 일시중지, 유예. The storm caused the suspension of all flight operations. Disruption. Noun. 붕괴, 혼란, 중단. The strike caused massive disruption to the train network. Structural. Adjective. 구조적인. The old bridge suffered severe structural damage. Vigilant. Adjective. 바짝 경계하는. Parents must be vigilant about what their kids watch online. Aftershock. Noun. 여진. Several small aftershocks were felt after the quake. Evacuation. Noun. 대피, 피난. The city ordered a mandatory evacuation before the hurricane. 시사용어 해설. Aftershock. 여진. 큰 지진, 본진이 일어난 후 지각이 안정되는 과정에서 그 주변 지역에 연속적으로 발생하는 작은 지진들을 말합니다.
7-3. Asian markets react cautiously to US-Canada tariff dispute. Asian financial markets are responding with heightened caution to the erupting tariff war between the United States and Canada. For an export-driven economy like Japan, particularly its vital automotive sector, the sudden breakdown of North American trade relations presents a significant economic risk. Economists fear that the heavy retaliatory tariffs imposed by both sides will act as a catalyst for a broader wave of global protectionism, inevitably shrinking international trade volumes. In response to this uncertainty, regional investors are actively recalibrating their portfolios. This has led to an increased demand for safe haven assets, causing notable fluctuations in the value of the Japanese yen. Vocabulary. Automotive. Adjective. 자동차에. The automotive industry is undergoing a major transition.
Breakdown. Noun. 붕괴, 결렬. A breakdown in communication caused the project to fail. Catalyst. Noun. 기폭제, 촉매. The protests served as a catalyst for political reform. Shrink. Verb. 줄어들다, 위축되다. The company's profits began to shrink last quarter. Recalibrate. Verb. 재조정하다. Businesses must recalibrate their strategies after the pandemic. Safe haven. Noun. 안전한 피난처, 안전자산. Gold is traditionally seen as a safe haven asset. Fluctuation. Noun. 변동, 오르내림. The stock market has seen major price fluctuations this week. 4. 시사용어 해설. Safe haven asset, 안전자산. 주식 등 위험자산과 달리 경제위기나 불확실성이 커질 때 가치가 안정적으로 유지되거나 오르는 자산. 예로 금, 일본엔화, 미 달러 등을 뜻합니다.
8. Al Jazeera. 8-1.
New U.S. sanctions signal Trump desperation on Iran, experts say. Recent stringent sanctions imposed on Iran by the Trump administration are being interpreted by geopolitical experts as a sign of strategic desperation. Despite Washington's relentless economic pressure campaigns designed to force Tehran back to the negotiating table, Iran's leadership remains unyielding. The U.S. is actively urging neighboring Gulf states to support the new embargoes. However, Tehran has fiercely countered by warning that any nation complying with U.S. sanctions will be officially classified as an enemy. Analysts suggest that Washington is exhausting its diplomatic and economic leverage while failing to achieve its primary objective. This deadlock significantly elevates the risk of a wider confrontation in the Middle East. Vocabulary. Sanction. Noun. 제재. 처벌. The UN imposed severe economic sanctions on the country. Desperation. Noun. 질퍽함. 필사적임. In desperation, he sold his car to pay off debts. Stringent. Adjective. 엄격. 가혹. Stringent safety regulations must be followed at the site. Relentless. Adjective. 끈질긴. 가차없는. The army continued its relentless attack on the city.
Unyielding. Adjective. 굽히지 않는. 단호한. She remained unyielding in her beliefs despite criticism. Embargo. Noun. 금수조치. 통상정지. The government lifted the trade embargo after the peace deal. Leverage. Noun. 영향력. 지렛대. The union used the strike threat as leverage in negotiations. Deadlock. Noun. 교착 상태. The talks reached a deadlock after a week of arguing. 시사용어 해설. Sanctions. 제재. 국제법을 위반하거나 평화를 위협하는 국가에 대해 다른 국가들이 금융거래를 막거나 자원 수출을 금지하는 방식의 경제적, 외교적 처벌입니다. 8-2. Ukraine's offensive against Russia causes petrol panic across Central Asia. A relentless campaign of drone strikes by Ukraine targeting Russian oil refineries and fuel depots has triggered a severe petrol shortage, extending far beyond Russia's borders. The systematic destruction of these energy facilities has drastically reduced fuel output, causing massive logistical disruptions. Consequently, the resulting supply shock has caused widespread petrol panic across Central Asian countries that heavily rely on Russian energy exports. Tens of millions of people are now enduring agonizing, hours-long queues at gas stations, sometimes resulting in physical altercations. As the conflict drags on, the escalating energy crisis threatens to deeply destabilize the domestic economy of neighboring allied states. Vocabulary. Offensive. Noun. 공세. 공격. The military launched a major offensive at dawn. Refinery. Noun. 정유공장. The oil refinery processes thousands of barrels daily. Depot. Noun. 저장소. 창고. The weapons depot was destroyed in the airstrike. Systematic. Adjective. 체계적인. 조직적인. The team conducted a systematic review of the data. Logistical. Adjective. 물류에. 수송에. The disaster caused severe logistical problems for delivery. Agonizing. Adjective. 고통스러운. Waiting for the medical test results was agonizing. Altercation. Noun. 언쟁. 다툼. An altercation broke out in the parking lot. Destabilize. Verb. 불안정하게 만들다. The ongoing protests threatened to destabilize the government. 시사용어 해설. Supply shock. 공급 충격. 전쟁이나 재난으로 인해 상품이나 자원, 여기서는 휘발유의 공급이 갑작스럽게 크게 줄어들어 가격이 폭등하고 시장에 큰 혼란이 오는 현상을 뜻합니다. Overhaul. Noun. 정비, 개편. The education system is in desperate need of an overhaul. Loyal. Adjective. 충성스러운. He remained a loyal supporter of the team for decades. Bar. Verb. 막다, 차단하다. The player was barred from competing after failing a drug test. Consolidate. Verb. 강화하다, 굳히다. The company merged with a rival to consolidate its market share. 시사용어 해설. Snap election. 조기 선거. 정해진 임기가 끝나기 전에 정치적인 목적이나 위기를 타개하기 위해 권력자가 국회를 해산하고 불시에 실시하는 선거를 말합니다. 9. CBC Canada. 9-1.
Border communities brace for more fallout in Canada-US tariff fight. Border communities on both sides of the US-Canada divide are bracing for severe economic fallout following the collapse of trade talks and the ensuing tariff war. In major border hubs like Sarnia and Windsor, local leaders warn that the imposition of reciprocal tariffs up to 50% will act as a massive job killer. Canadian industries involving steel, auto manufacturing, and agriculture fear they will suffer devastating losses if the dispute is prolonged. Interestingly, several U.S. state governors share these anxieties, explicitly criticizing the Trump administration's policies for driving up the cost of living and endangering American manufacturing jobs. As the deadline for the retaliatory tariffs approaches, public anxiety continues to mount. Vocabulary. Brace. Verb. 대비하다. The coastal towns are bracing for the hurricane. Fallout. Noun. 여파. 후유증. The political fallout from the scandal was immense. Ensuing. Adjective. 뒤따르는. 다음에. In the ensuing chaos, many people were injured. Reciprocal. Adjective. 상호간에. The two countries signed a reciprocal trade agreement. Devastating. Adjective. 파괴적인. The devastating fire destroyed the entire forest. Prolong. Verb. 연장하다, 장기화하다. Stress can prolong the recovery time from an illness. Explicitly. Adverb. 명시적으로. The contract explicitly states the working hours. Mount. Verb. 증가하다, 고조되다. Pressure is mounting on the CEO to resign. Fallout. 경제적 여파. 원래는 핵폭발 후 흩어지는 방사능 낙진을 뜻하지만 뉴스에서는 어떤 사건, 무역전쟁 등으로 인해 발생하는 심각한 부작용이나 후유증을 의미합니다. 9-2. 24 Canadians among hundreds still missing as 157 confirmed dead in Nepal and Tibet. The devastating flash floods that swept through the Nepal-Tibet border region have profoundly impacted the international community, claiming at least 157 confirmed lives thus far. Among the hundreds of individuals still missing are 24 Canadian nationals who were trekking in the region. Back in Canada, Nepalese communities, such as those based in London, Ontario, are completely heartbroken as they desperately await news of their loved ones back home. International search and rescue teams are working around the clock. However, obliterated roads and severe mudslides are drastically slowing down their progress. The Canadian government is working closely with local authorities to locate the missing citizens and provide emergency consular assistance. Vocabulary. Profoundly. Adverb. 깊이. 극심하게. The society was profoundly affected by the war. Thus far. Adverbial phrase. 지금까지. The project has been very successful thus far. Heartbroken. Adjective. 피톤. 슬픔에 잠긴. She was heartbroken when her pet dog passed away. Desperately. Adverb. 필사적으로. 애타게. They are desperately searching for a cure. Around the clock.
Adverbial phrase. 24시간 내내. Doctors worked around the clock to save the patients. Obliterate. Verb. 완전히 파괴하다. The tsunami obliterated the small fishing village. Mudslide. Noun. 산사태, 진흙사태. The heavy rain triggered a massive mudslide. Consular. Adjective. 영사이. The embassy provided emergency consular assistance. 시사 용어 해설. Consular assistance. 영사 지원. 해외에 체류하는 자국 국민이 범죄나 재난 등의 위기 상황에 처했을 때 대사관이나 영사관에서 외교적, 행정적 도움을 제공하는 것을 말합니다. 9-3. Dolly Parton, one of country music's greatest legends, dead at 80. Dolly Parton, an omnipresent country music legend adored by fans for her artistry, honesty, and philanthropy, has died at the age of 80. Rising from humble beginnings in a 2-room Appalachian cabin to the height of global stardom, her career spanned over 6 decades and produced timeless classics like Jolene and 9 to 5. Parton's publicist confirmed she passed away peacefully following a brief battle with cancer. Beyond her sparkling costumes and unparalleled vocals, she was a fierce champion for education, donating millions of books to children through her imagination library. By her example, we believed anything was possible, her nephew shared, capturing the immense grief and gratitude of her millions of fans worldwide. Vocabulary. Omnipresent. Omnipresent. NGB. 어디에나 있는, 보편적인. Smartphones have become an omnipresent part of modern life. Adore. Adore. Tob. 아주 좋아하다, 흠모하다. The singer is adored by her fans all over the world. Humble. Humble. 아주. 초라한, 겸손한. He rose from humble beginnings to become a billionaire. Unparalleled. Unparalleled. 형. 비할 데 없는. The athlete demonstrated an unparalleled level of skill. Fierce. Fierce. 형. 열렬한, 치열한. She was a fierce defender of animal rights. Champion. Champion. 명. 옹호자, 투사. He has always been a champion for free speech. Gratitude. Gratitude. 명. 감사, 감사하는 마음. I would like to express my deep gratitude for your help. Grief. Grief. 명. 큰 슬픔, 비통. The family was overcome with grief after the accident. 시사용어 해설. Philanthropy, 자선활동. 단순히 돈을 기부하는 것을 넘어 돌리 파턴처럼 체계적인 재단 운영을 통해 장기적으로 인류의 삶의 질, 문해력 향상 등을 높이는 적극적인 자선활동을 뜻합니다.
10. DD India 10-1. Nearly 100 killed, over 750 missing in Nepal flash floods. A catastrophic flash flood originating in the Tibet region has swept through central Nepal, resulting in a horrifying death toll of nearly 100, while over 750 people remain missing. The disaster is particularly distressing for India, as at least 133 Indian nationals and 37 non-resident Indians, NRIs, are among the missing, many of whom were pilgrims on the Kailash Manasarovar Yatra. Nepalese officials suggest the deluge was triggered by a seismic event that potentially caused a glacial lake outburst flood. The raging waters of the Bote Koshi River completely washed away critical infrastructure, including numerous bridges and a dozen hydropower projects. The Indian Prime Minister has offered full humanitarian assistance, deploying relief materials to Kathmandu. Vocabulary. Horrifying. Adjective. 끔찍한, 소름 끼치는. The documentary revealed the horrifying reality of war. Distressing. Adjective. 고통스러운, 비참한. It was a distressing situation for the victim's family. National. Noun. 국민, 국적자. The embassy is contacting all American nationals in the area. Pilgrim. Noun. 순례자. Thousands of pilgrims travel to Mecca every year. Outburst. Noun. 폭발, 파열. An emotional outburst interrupted the quiet meeting. Raging. Adjective. 맹렬한, 거센. They barely managed to cross the raging river. Critical. Adjective. 중대한, 결정적인. Bridges are critical infrastructure for the town. Deploy. Verb. 배치하다, 파병하다. The general decided to deploy more troops to the border. 시사용어 해설. Non-resident Indians, NRI, 제외 인도인. 인도 국적을 가지고 있지만 외국에 거주하며 일하거나 생활하는 사람들을 일컫는 공식 용어입니다. Glacial Lake Outburst Flood, 빙하호 붕괴 홍수. 빙하가 녹아 생긴 거대한 호수 둑이 지진 등으로 무너져 내리면서 하류 지역으로 엄청난 양의 물과 토사가 쏟아지는 재난입니다. 10-2. Trump administration issues pause on immigrant visa appointments for applicants worldwide. In a sweeping move that impacts millions, President Donald Trump's administration has issued a global pause on immigrant visa appointments.
The U.S. State Department justified the sudden halt by citing the rollout of a global training initiative across all U.S. embassies and consulates, requiring adjustments to regular visa services. However, observers view this action as a clear extension of the administration's aggressive immigration crackdown during Trump's second term in the White House. The aggressive drive includes mass deportations, green card revocations, and the rejection of applicants over political opinions. The suspension throws the lives of countless international applicants, notably from South Asia, into deep uncertainty. Vocabulary. Pause. Noun. 일시중지. The referee called for a short pause in the game. Justify. Verb. 정당화하다. He tried to justify his absence with a weak excuse. Halt. Noun. 중단, 멈춤. The factory came to a sudden halt due to a power cut. Rollout. Noun. 출시, 도입. The software rollout caused some technical glitches. Extension. Noun. 연장, 연장선. The new policy is an extension of their previous plans. Crackdown. Noun. 엄중단속. The police launched a crackdown on illegal gambling. Revocation. Noun. 취소, 철회. The judge ordered the revocation of his driver's license. Suspension. Noun. 정지, 유예. The employee is on a temporary suspension without pay. 시사용어 해설. Deportation, 추방. 법을 위반했거나 합법적인 체류 자격이 없는 외국인을 강제로 자국 영토 밖으로 쫓아내는 행위를 말합니다. 트럼프 행정부의 주요 공약 중 하나입니다. 10-3. India rejects UNCERD report as politically motivated, defends record on racial discrimination. India has vehemently rejected recent observations made by the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, UNCERD, labeling the report as politically motivated and malicious. Following a periodic review in Geneva, the UN body raised concerns regarding racial discrimination and the treatment of minority communities within the country. In a strong rebuttal, the Ministry of External Affairs, MEA, spokesperson, defended India's track record, highlighting its robust constitutional safeguards, legal framework, and pluralistic traditions designed to protect disadvantaged groups. This diplomatic clash underscores New Delhi's growing assertiveness in rejecting international scrutiny over its domestic human rights policies. Vocabulary. Vehemently, adverb. 맹렬히, 격렬하게. She vehemently denied the accusations against her. Malicious, adjective. 악의적인. The computer was attacked by malicious software. Periodic, adjective. 주기적인, 정기적인. The machine requires periodic maintenance to work well. Rebuttal, noun. 반박, 항변. The lawyer provided a strong rebuttal to the prosecutor's claim. Robust, adjective. 탄탄한, 강력한. The country's economy is surprisingly robust. Pluralistic, adjective. 다원주의적인. We live in a highly pluralistic and diverse society. Assertiveness, noun. 자기주장, 단호함. The manager's assertiveness helped the team succeed. Scrutiny, noun. 정밀조사, 감시. His private life came under intense public scrutiny.